Hi Phil, this is Janet Johnson. Thank you so much for being willing to be a preceptor for Matt this fall in his work towards his master's degree in athletic training. One of the requirements that we need to complete in getting a new preceptor is to do some what we deem as preceptor training, and just review some of the expectations that we have at Bethel University from our preceptors as well as our students that are going out. So that's what this audio recording is all about. So I'm sending you a link to the athletic training program Preceptor Notebook. So if you need to reference this later, you can, or just follow along even while we're going through it. So there's quite a few pages. I'm not going to go through everything, just primarily things that are pertinent to you being a preceptor for a year 2 graduate level student. So Chad Osgood is our program director, so if you need to contact him, here's his contact information, and then mine is next to it if you need to call me for some reason. I'm going to skip down to our general information. So Bethel University is a Christian institution, and so we integrate faith into our educational program, and that is actually it is our top goal in our program, is to integrate faith and biblical truth into athletic training. So I bring that up because there might be some clinical questions or assignments that Matt has this fall semester in which he's seeking your advice and mentorship as far as how to integrate faith into the field of athletic training, how you do it, how you've seen it done, or just to give him something to dialogue with you about. The curriculum, I'm going to skip down here. The curriculum that Matt is taking, these are the courses that he's taking. He will have completed all the evaluation courses, modalities, exercise progression, some beginning and advanced emergency care, and then he will have completed 2 of his clinical experience classes. He'll be doing his 3rd one while he's with you. So probably, about halfway through his educational curriculum. So he's considered a level 2 graduate athletic training student. For clinical experiences, the students are required to accumulate a minimum of 250 hours per semester. So the time that Matt is with you is deemed an immersive clinical. So he's assigned a 6-week clinical with you, and we'll be trying to get 35 to 40 hours a week, which probably won't be a problem that time of year, working with you to experience what is it like to be immersed in a clinical setting, which of the student's choice, which for Matt, of course, is Cornerstone. While he is there, he will have some skills that he is going to need to demonstrate for you. So the skills come on, it's being a little packet. And here's an example of one that he may come to you with saying he needs to demonstrate. Neurological exam of the upper extremity. So he would give you this form that you would evaluate him with. The first box here always has our criteria of evaluation. So for this one, the neurological exam of the upper extremity would include myotomes, dermatomes, and reflexes being correctly assessed. He can be scored on a 0 to 6 scale in that category. So a 0 is below 70% completion. Up to a 6 would be 100%. The 3 is about a 70%, so that's just kind of barely passing his skill demonstration. You can award him a 5 or a 4, also kind of some in-between scores as you see appropriate. The final 4 categories for every skill are always the same. The skill follows the logical order. Did he demonstrate confidence, professionalism, and complete it in an appropriate amount of time? And that's just 1 point each for those. Then the total is out of 10 points. These situations or skills can be demonstrated in a live scenario, or you can simulate them. Either way is fine, and we ask you to sign it, and there's a space here for notes too. So the student needs to get a 70% total, so they need to have at least a 7 out of 10 in order to pass a skill. But they also have to pass every skill. So let's say, for example, Matt did this skill and he wasn't really prepared for it, came in and you scored him at a 5 out of 10. That's obviously below a 7, so below passing. He needs to repeat that skill for you at some time, maybe probably on another day, to the point where he can be at a 7 or above. However, the grade that gets put in the grade book for him will be a 5. So they get the grade that they received when they first did the skill, but if it was below failing, they need to keep repeating it until they do pass that skill. I hope that makes sense. He'll have up to 13 of these, but he may only choose to do maybe half or 2/3 of them at your facility, depending on what kind of time you have available. Okay. Here's just a broad statement of skills and abilities. So if you're wondering in the category of prevention techniques what he's had education on or what the expectations are, this is the GATS is what he would have been be able to demonstrate and be evaluated on. So we have 4 categories of criteria in that rubric if you want to look at that. Okay, some of our affiliate site information. So Preceptor Training is good for 3 years. So I guess if we had other students that wanted to come out to you, you wouldn't have to go through the training again. Our preceptors, we're asking them to supervise the students, provide instruction and assessment, provide opportunities for students to develop their clinical skills, provide assessment of athletic training students, clinical integration of proficiencies, communication, and clinical decision-making. Those are really important at this part in maths education. And facilitate the integration of skills, knowledge, and evidence. There are some standards that will be of particular application to the clinical experience. So the first one that I want to mention is Standard 41. All preceptors have to receive ongoing and planned education. That's what this is. So thank you for being a preceptor and being willing to go through the training of this. Standard 51, clinical sites are evaluated on an annual and planned basis. So in the case of a clinical site that's a distant location, we'll probably be contacting you through FaceTime, or even just talking on the phone and having Matt send some pictures of some documents that are required. And I'll talk about those later. Obviously, we can't be on site with you, although I would gladly come out there if Bethel would pay for it. The evaluation is at the end of this manual, so I'll show that to you as well when we get there. Standard 57. Matt is working towards his accumulation of 1,000 hours, so he's actually halfway done at this point with his clinical hours. He needs to receive a minimum of 1 day off every 7, typically at high schools, clinics, and even Bethel. We award them Sundays off, even if we would happen to have a practice. That's the day that we give the students off so that they get that 1 day off every 7. They can't receive any monetary remuneration during his educational experience. He can't be considered a replacement for professional athletic training staff. And that's primarily because he needs to be directly supervised by you. So you need to have verbal and visual contact with Matt at all times during the treatment or performance of the athletic training duties. We do carry liability insurance on all of our students. The We do also have a therapeutic equipment policy that Matt will be asking, or he has to complete an assignment where he has to make sure all the therapeutic equipment is calibrated, and so we may have a policy of what is considered therapeutic equipment, which in essence is anything or modality that plugs in, with the exception of the ice machine. We exclude that from that definition. So all the equipment, therapeutic equipment, has to be inspected, calibrated, and maintained. So he'll be asking for the service bill, or he'll have to check all the equipment and make sure that it has a service sticker on it. Blood-borne pathogens policy needs to be posted or readily available in all locations where Matt will be. Blood-borne pathogen training and procedures. So he needs to have the barriers and control measures, so the glove and masks, or in the kit, wherever he'll be working, need to be available. They have to have access to proper sanitation precautions, so hand washing stations at all the sites. All the venues that Matt will be at need to have an emergency action plan written out. So if he's on this football and volleyball and a variety of sports, he needs to know the emergency action plan for every one of those venues. And it's great to quiz students on that and see if they really do know what to do in case of an emergency. There are 2 emergency action plans, by the way. There's the injured athlete emergency action plan. So what do we do? Who does what if an athlete goes down or they're injured or EMS needs to be called? So that's one. And then there's the institutional emergency action plan. So what does the student athletic trainer, Matt, do in case of a fire or tornado? So that's all very clear. Students need to have access to the emergency action plan. That's standard 80 that's being fulfilled. Okay, Preceptor Guidelines. Again, this is all throughout the training manual several times, that the supervisor needs to have direct supervision, and the students are not to carry out athletic training duties without a preceptor in visual and verbal contact. I think we reviewed all these. The big thing that we really strive for our students in this clinical is that they do a lot of evaluation of injuries. They're actively participating in rehab processes and planning and documentation of injuries. This is one of the more valuable experiences that Matt will have, is his time with you, because he'll be doing everything that he would do for a job. And we just really want him to be immersed in it and be able to take the reins and run with it from the beginning of the day till the end of the night, and just really see what it's like to be an athletic trainer with the day-to-day duties. More definitions on direct supervision. All right, I'm going to move over to the appendix and just briefly review some of the forms and policies. Therapeutic equipment, again, as I said, it's any equipment that plugs in, and that is actually a federal definition, and it's recommended that that equipment is checked annually. Clinical affiliation agreement we've received from you guys, so we're all good on that. Communicable disease policy, Matt has signed this, stating that if he has a communicable disease, that he'll contact you 24 hours ahead of time and tell you that he will not be attending. So we obviously don't want students coming to clinicals and they're spreading disease to their preceptors or student athletes. This goals form, Matt will be completing his first week and bringing to you. He sends it to me electronically, and you can keep the hard copy. But he's going to list some of his strengths and his weaknesses, some goals that he'd like to achieve out of this clinical. And then we just have an opportunity in here that you guys can talk about scheduling of hours. He'll need to identify which skills he wants to have checked off during his time with you. And then this is just a little check off for you and Matt to make sure that these 3 things are done. He needs to read the Preceptor Guidelines And actually this line is for your initials. Once he's read the emergency action plan, then again you can put your initials in that line, and then he has to fill out where that location of the emergency action plan is. Same for blood-borne pathogen policy. Needs to be posted and visible. However, if it's electronic and he has access to it, that's fine. And then he has to check all the therapeutic equipment. So you can quiz him on all those to see if he's done that, and then the student will sign that. This is the evaluation that you'll do on Matt when he's done with his time with you, and that's on his 1 to 5 scale. Matt can provide this to you on a hard copy, or he can open up a Google Doc for you, whichever you prefer. Just let him know. We do need a final evaluation. There is an opportunity to do a midterm evaluation if you feel like you want to take that opportunity and need that to just address some issues, good or bad. Then that's available as well, but it is optional. The second page then just asks you to rank the last 20 points on if he's met your expectations or not, and then the total points is out of 100. This evaluation is actually 20% of their clinical grade, so it's fairly important to them, and we don't expect students to go flying through all their clinicals with 100 points. We'd like them to get some constructive hints or criticism, and obviously grow and get better during their time with you. Matt will also do an evaluation of you, and this is not shared with you. However, at the end of the year, we'll release these to the preceptors, but I guess it's obvious where it comes from if you only have one student. So, but you can see what he evaluates you on. They're pretty straightforward up front, just making sure that you abide by the Preceptor Guidelines. This is our clinical site evaluation form that we use on an annual basis. So we'll just be talking over a few items, probably on the phone or FaceTime, so that you can show us, where the service bill is for maintaining equipment, where you keep your blood-borne pathogen procedures. Are they posted? Where are the barriers? Is there a sink? Can they wash their hands? And then where the emergency action plans are located. So that's where we document all of that. Matt keeps his clinical hours electronically. This is what our hard copy looks like. So we encourage students to share that with their preceptors, and then every couple weeks remind the preceptor just to take a peek at it and electronically sign it for their hours. So Matt is with you for 6 weeks, and of course we're looking at 35 to 40 hours. So if he's on the upper end of that, we've got 240 hours that he'll be spending with you, which pretty much takes care of most of his clinical time in the fall. So that sheet it's kind of what we're looking at, between that 200 and 250 hours. The back here is just maybe some ideas if you're the type that likes to really kind of challenge the students, use your downtime, if you have any, for some skill development. But in this section, we also have some ideas on what you might want to do on your first day of orientation. So this is actually a student-driven. Students have told us that these are the things that have been most helpful. If they get an orientation to the facility, what your expectations as a preceptor are of the student. So what should their role be in case of an injury in a practice, game, in the clinic, in the athletic training room? What's the best time to review performance? What's the best time for students to ask questions? Would you prefer them to ask right there in front of an athlete, or would you prefer them to wait until the athlete's gone and you discuss a case or some questions later? Cell phones, what's your policy? We have preceptors all over the board. So some of them say when you get here, your cell phone goes in your backpack and that's where it stays until you leave, to people that are pretty loose about it and everything in between. So your decision there. What they should do with their downtime. Yeah, we occasionally have downtime, don't we? And so students will want to know, should I be documenting? Should I be cleaning? Is there some duties that are just specifically for me? And of course, with an immersion experience, we want them to be doing a lot of what you do. So that, again, they're hopefully pretty much doing your job by the end of their clinical with you. Also, is there an hierarchy in regards to evaluations? Do you have some student workers, or do you have assistant athletic trainers that see your athletes before you pass them on to somebody else? Just kind of how does that work? They like to know when to arrive, what time they can leave, should they plan on attending everything and all the games. And for math, these would be yeses. You should plan on being there. If you're there, Phil, at work, then Matt should be there. That's kind of the idea of an immersive. And we've already talked about it. And then appearance policy, which has never been a problem with us with Matt, but he's professional with all of this, so I wouldn't expect there to be a problem. So, and the rest of it is just some ideas for teachable moments on how you might come up with scenarios, or there's some ideas in here. If you choose to use them, of course, it doesn't really matter to me. We just want him to be challenged in what he's doing. So a few little comments on the back that actually I don't think are going to be relevant for Matt. He's been a good student. This is the last page that I need you to sign and send back to me. This is where I record that you did your training for preceptorship, and then I submit these to the Katie accreditation. So we have to report all of the information on this sheet. So if you could fill that out, and then I just need this particular sheet back, and then I can record that in the website. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Again, Matt's been a good student. He's got received really good marks from his preceptors and his other clinicals, so I shouldn't expect there to be any problems. He's really excited about being back at Cornerstone. So again, thank you so much for doing this. The training itself, Phil, is worth 1 CEU on your athletic training, your BOC CEUs. Also, anytime that you supervise 200 hours, you're a preceptor for 200 hours in a calendar year. So anytime between January and December, and I would expect that you would have 200 hours with Matt, then that's worth 5 CEUs. So I try to keep track of that, but if I forget and I don't send you your certificate for those 5 CEUs, just send me a little email to tap me on the shoulder and be sure to get that to you. So thanks again, and if I could get this form back before Matt starts on August 19th, that would be awesome. So thanks again, Phil.